Welcome to this month's Heritage feature, which is all about Wyndham Park. We've got memories from various local people, including Angie Hibbett, Pam Cox and Ken Gregory, and many more. We've also got Betty Elmer with a little story about the chestnut tree that grows within Wyndham Park. We're going to start the feature off with a little bit of history from John Pinchbeck. I'm here with John, and he's going to tell us a little bit about the history of Wyndham Park.
Well, in the days of Charles II, the field to the east of North Mill, that's roughly where the White Bridge stands today, was used for grazing and public fairs. And in 1886, it formally became Slate Mill Park, the North Mill having changed its name. It was built by unemployed men and included an outdoor swimming pool created by damming and diverting the River Wyndham. Now, when Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee was celebrated in 1897, borough councillors proposed an indoor pool, would you believe, but it failed to materialise. It finally came along in about 1970 in Union Street. Anyway, instead, they improved the Slate Mill Paddock swimming pool, thanks to land donated by Percy Chandos Farquhar Parafficini of Burcombe Manor, Corby Glen, who also lived at St Vincent's. In 1920, it was decided to develop the area as a memorial to the town's war dead, and the Dowager Lady Leconfield put up £1,000 in honour of her son, Lieutenant Reginald Wyndham, who lived at North House on North Parade. The revamped park was named in his memory and officially opened in 1924. Wyndham Park, as we now know it, was constructed by 400 unemployed men who were paid a shilling an hour, or 5p, who preferred to earn their money rather than take benefit. The new park cost £5,000. And in 1928, the Park's Bowls Club was formed and the bowling green opened the following year. It was a little bit unfortunate that I think it was about the mid-90s, I got a phone call when I was working at the Journal from a chap who said, "Can you come down to John Bullen's scrapyard?" So I duly did, and he showed me this piece of bronze, a plate of bronze, and it was actually the brass plaque from Wyndham Park Gatehouse honouring the war dead of the First World War. It had been thrown out by the district council, who'd got it in store at their Mobeck House area, that little compound off there, and it had been sold for scrap apparently. It was unfortunate for them that a journalist was called to that, because it didn't give them a very good image, shall we say. Fortunately, the council took it back, and I think it now hangs in the Guildhall. To be fair to them, they had to take it down because of vandals in the gatehouse originally, and that's why it was at Mobeck House.
John, you've grown up in Grantham. You must have some memories of spending your childhood wasting time down at Wyndham Park.
Oh, many. In the 60s, when I was a young lad, we often used to come through the paddling pool on the way home from the pub and do press-ups in the paddling pool. Of course, it was empty in winter, and in summer, sometimes you'd forget it wasn't. As long as there was no surface of ice on it, when I was at school, you had to go to the swimming baths at Wyndham Park. It was cruel sometimes, it really was. I think 40 degrees was the limit, anything less than 40, and we had to do press-ups outside instead.
Is that where you learnt to swim, John, at the pool there?
No, it's where I learnt to shiver.
Hello, my name's Bruce Hattett. My memories of Wyndham Park, we used to walk down the river from Dysart Park straight to Wyndham Park to mess about, play football. As you go through the paddock itself, we used to jump over the fence into the river, which we wouldn't be able to do nowadays. A bit too dangerous. We used to do a lot of things down there. We used to play cricket, football. We used to even climb up on the old steamroller that was to be sat in the corner.
Hi, Dennis Kay here. Wyndham Park. Oh, a lot of memories for me, to be quite honest. Sunday afternoons was the big day for me in Wyndham Park. Myself and a group of friends, for a period of about 10 years, every Sunday afternoon, used to go down there and play football. If we were lucky, we could get to play down the slope on the bigger part of the park. But if somebody got there before us, it would be a smaller pitch at the top. And the problem with that was, if you kicked the ball too hard, it would go over the fence and into the what was the Boys Central School. So somebody had to climb over the fence to go and get the ball back quite a few times on a Sunday afternoon. Other memories I've got, the old steamroller. Yes, I can remember that as playing on that as a small child. There was the witch's hat as well. Nowadays, health and safety wouldn't allow that, but the witch's hat was sort of a cone-shaped, and it used to spin round at tremendous speed, and you used to hang on and hopefully not fall off. There was a little roundabout, and there was a slide, kids' slides. We used to love them as really small children. Other things I remember about Wyndham Park is when I was involved with Radio Wyndham in the 70s and 80s, Radio Wyndham used to provide the PA system for the carnival, and many a time we'd be there on the Friday actually digging small little pieces of the park up and laying the cables for the PA system, and then on the day presenting all the acts and things that were going on. And the atmosphere when Wyndham Park was full was tremendous. And my last memory, or my first memory probably, when the Queen Mother came. I remember seeing the Queen Mother drive through Wyndham Park on the back of a Land Rover, and the thing that stands out most was the amount of people there and the colour of the Queen Mother's dress. It was lime green.
My name is Elizabeth Boskill and I'm Secretary of the Wyndham Park Forum. We are collecting memories of people who have lived in Grantham and have used Wyndham Park through many stages of their lives while they've lived in Grantham. I have with me today Kevin Marshall, who was born in Grantham and grew up and played in the park as a youngster, I gather. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Elizabeth.
What is your earliest memory of Wyndham Park?
I would guess that my earliest recollection of being in Wyndham Park would be when I was about 5 or 6 probably, and there is a picture of me in the family album on a three-wheeled bicycle, actually cycling over the White Bridge coming in towards the park. So that would probably be in about the late 1950s, I guess, 58, 59 probably.
And as a small child, did you use the paddling pool?
I did, yes. We would come down there as a family. Certainly myself and my parents. When the weather was warm, we would be down there. I would be splashing about in the paddling pool, and you've got to remember, probably at the deepest end, the paddling pool was no more than ankle deep, and at the shallow end there was hardly any water in it at all. But we would be down there. My mum and dad would be sat on the grass on a blanket or whatever. We'd have a picnic. We'd mess about. We'd go fishing in the River Wytham with our nets, catching little tiddlers and things, and generally enjoying ourselves along with hosts of other people, particularly on hot sunny afternoons.
So it was well used, the paddling?
Yes, it was definitely well used. It would be quite busy. There were benches around the actual paddling pool itself. They would be full of people sat watching their children messing about in the pool, and certainly the paddling pool itself would be full, and there would be people around and about on the grass picnicking, just enjoying themselves like we did as a family.
Did you use the open air swimming pool as a child?
I did. Yes, in fact I learnt to swim at Wyndham Park swimming baths. I would probably be about 9 or 10, I guess, when I actually learnt to swim. I remember being there one Saturday. I think I'd borrowed an inflatable plastic ring from a friend, and I persevered in the shallow end of the swimming pool with the ring round my waist. All of the Saturday, sort of moving a little bit further away, there was a black bar that used to run round, which was something for you to cling on to and on the inside of the swimming pool, and you would move a little bit further and further away from it and thrash about and do one or two more strokes. And having done that all of that Saturday afternoon, going back to the swimming baths early part of the next week, and realising that I could actually swim. I didn't need the ring anymore, and it wasn't long after that I actually got my 25 yards proficiency certificate for being able to swim a width of the bath, and then from there went on, and I've got a certificate for 50 yards, but I've also got a certificate for swimming a mile, which was all done at the Wyndham Park swimming baths.
Would you have done this from the school?
Yes, that's right. It was all sorted out from the school. I was a pupil of the national school as a primary school pupil, so we used to go down to the swimming baths. That was where we used to go and practice and learn to swim. And I remember that until we did learn to swim, they used to get blue plastic vests that they kept in a wooden shed at the bottom of the swimming baths near the girls' changing rooms, and you used to have to put one of those on, and it had a facility for you to be able to put polystyrene floats inside the vest, and that was supposedly to help you with buoyancy, and the better you got at it, the less or the more that these polystyrene floats they would take out of your suit until you were actually swimming and didn't need any at all.
And did you go regularly, sort of apart from school swimming, with your friends?
Yes, I did. We certainly from sort of leaving primary school and going to secondary school, I would spend all of my time at the Wyndham Park swimming baths, from when it opened early in the season in May right through to the end of September. I would be there every day, and certainly in the school summer holidays I would go very, very early in the morning as soon as the pool was open, which would be about sort of 10 o'clock time, with a pack of sandwiches, and I would be there until they closed at night, until the very last person was in the pool. In fact, we had a competition between the friends that we used to go with regularly. We wanted to try and be the last one in the pool when the pool superintendent, Barry Roberts, rang the bell. So as we saw him wander out from his office with his bell tucked under his arm, we would get ready to dive in the pool, much to his annoyance.
And it was an open air pool, so it must have been pretty cold at some times.
It was definitely an open air pool, and yes, it was definitely very cold at times. What you've got to remember is that the pool probably opened early part of May, maybe even the first week of May, right through to the end of September. And in the early days of the pool being open in May, the temperature would be quite cold. Barry would take the temperature every day. He'd got a thermometer on a bit of string that he would throw into the deep end, and after 4 or 5 minutes he would haul it out, and then he would go and chalk the temperature on a board that was just hanging over where you used to pay your money and come in. And I can remember in early May the temperature being sort of 49, but that's 49 degrees Fahrenheit, not centigrade. So with 32 Fahrenheit being freezing point, you can imagine it wasn't far off of actually ice cold. And if you dived in, and you had to be very, very brave to dive in, what you used to find, you would stand on the steps, because there were wooden steps at various points around the swimming pool, and you would very, very gingerly lower yourself into the water a step at a time, and you could be taking up to an hour to get in sometimes because it was that cold. And you couldn't swim. It was impossible to actually swim a width because the coldness just totally took your breath away. Your chest was hurting, it was that cold. But you had to go. You had to be there on the first day of the season, and you had to be there on the last day of the season.
And I gather there were season tickets to be had?
Yes, there were season tickets. I was very fortunate in that my auntie worked for the council. So as soon as the season tickets were on sale, she would go and purchase one for me as a present. And try as I did, I never actually succeeded in getting number one. It was always my ambition to have season ticket number one. I never actually achieved it, but I do think that at one stage I did actually get season ticket number 3. And a season ticket was good. It was really good value for money, particularly for somebody like me who spent so much time there at the swimming pool. The pool was open 7 days a week, and the season ticket allowed you access to it Monday through to Saturday. So for 6 days, you didn't have to pay anything. If you went on a Sunday and the pool opened Sunday morning till about lunchtime and then closed till 2 and opened again in the afternoon, you had to pay. So even though you got a season ticket, you still had to pay for every Sunday throughout the season.
But it was worth it for the fun you had and being out in the fresh air and exercise.
Definitely. I mean, it was something, a whole group of friends, we would gather there. But as I say, particularly during the summer holidays, we would be there from first thing in the morning till last thing at night. And we just loved it. We would be in and out of the pool all day. It was an incredible experience.
Photographs I've seen in the journal show that it was a very busy pool.
It was extremely busy, particularly after a prolonged period of hot and sunny weather. You used to look at the temperature every day when you were queuing to go in to get your season ticket scribbled on or to pay your money. And once the temperature hit the magic 80, which it did, I can remember it being up as sort of high as 84, 85 on some days. That was a magnet to people, and the place was absolutely heaving. There were people everywhere. There were bodies laid out. What you've got to remember is that unlike Dysart Park, where the swimming pool was a small rectangular pool with very little space to actually sit out, at Wyndham Park there was a massive amount of space for you to actually spread out on. There was a big grass bank on one side of the swimming pool and a large paved area on the other side of the swimming pool by the diving board and the boys' changing rooms. And I do remember on some summer's days it being an absolute nightmare, tiptoeing between bodies stretched out on towels, drying off after they'd been in the swimming pool or out sunbathing, for you to actually get to the water to have a swim.
So beside the swimming pool, what else did you do in the park as a youngster?
Well, look, we played on the amusements that were there. Obviously, there were and still are a series of amusements there to play on. In fact, as I walked along the river this morning to the studios, I think that the slide that's there looks like it's the same slide that was there when I was a young lad. But there was a slide, and as I say, it's still there today. There were a couple of sets of swings with 3 swings on each, a small roundabout that we used to spin and try and get to go as fast as possible, and then another big roundabout at the end, which was we called the Witch's Hat because that's what it looked like, and that was a fiendish beast that used to bounce from side to side, and you could spin it round. And we used to mess about on there, trying to rattle it as much as we could to get people that were clinging on for dear life to actually fall off and drop onto the floor. And
did you go on the steamroller that I believe is parked in that?
It was, yes. I do remember the steamroller arriving. It was an Evelyn Barford steamroller, which was particularly poignant to me as my father worked at Evelyn Barford's at the time. So that was an additional interest for me. But I can remember you used to be able to crawl all over it. You could turn wheels, you could pull levers, and you could do sort of boyish things like climb on the roof and jump off and fall over and sprain your wrist like I did on one occasion.
And what else did you do? Did you play football?
Yes, we did. We certainly once I left junior school and went to secondary school. I was at the King's School, so we weren't allowed to play football at the King's School. It was a rugby-only school in those days, so we weren't actually allowed to play football at all. But we used to go down the park. with friends from Boys Central School and St Wolfram's and wherever, people that we'd made friends with either at the swimming baths or we'd been with them at junior school. And probably on some occasions we'd have 30, 40 people gather on a Sunday morning, young lads who turned up just to play a game of football, and we would throw some jumpers down to make the goals at both ends, and we'd have sort of 15, 20-side football for 3 or 4 hours on a Sunday morning until we were absolutely exhausted or dinner was ready and it was time to go home. So we would jump on our bikes and clear off.
Now, I do know that there are various big events that have been in the park. Some of those have been circuses. Do you remember any of the circus?
Yeah, I do. I do remember the circus being in the park. If I remember rightly, it was at the sort of the lower level around where by the nursery school is now, and I can remember the tents being the large circus tent being there. I can't actually remember whether I ever went to a circus on the park, but I can certainly remember it being there. And then after the circus had cleared off all of the straw and the mess that was left after they'd packed up and departed.
We have pictures I've seen in the journal, the back copies of a circus with elephants, and of course in the 50s and 60s circuses still had elephants. If you didn't actually go to the circus, were you aware that there were animals in the park, so to speak?
Yes, indeed, we were aware, and what we used to try and do was to sort of sneak round the back of the tent to actually look at the circus animals in their cages. I know that there were elephants there, and I also know that there were the tigers and lions, because I can remember seeing them in the cages. But as I say, I can't actually remember anybody taking me to the circus, although I would have loved to have gone to one.
Do you remember any Grantham carnivals, the early ones, in the park?
No, not really. As I say, I started going to the park probably in the late 50s, but really my sort of most vivid memories of the park are probably when I started secondary school, which would be 64 probably when I started the King's School, and that's when we used to start going down there more. We would gather there most nights, once we'd been home, had a tea, we'd come out and we would be down the park. We would gather in what was the pavilion now, which I notice is locked at night, but when we were there it was open access, and we would spend hours just sat there with our bikes parked outside, messing about, doing silly things like lads do, kicking footballs about and generally annoying the park keeper.
That pavilion you mentioned, we are interested in what it looked like in the early days. The railings have been put up to stop people going in and vandalising. Now it has bars, but I do believe there was glass windows. What do you remember about the structure?
The thing that I remember most that is different to how it is today, and I passed by it again today and looked at it, was that it was actually, there was seating inside it when we were lads. There was cast iron and wooden benches that were fixed to the floor all around the inside of the pavilion. I can't really remember whether there were glass windows with it or not when we were there. I seem to think that there may have been glass windows along the back of it, but at the sides the windows were out. It's
one of those changes that has probably happened due to vandalism and change of use.
Yeah, and I think probably we'd have to put our hands up and say that we were part of the vandals because we used to mess about down there.
The memorial archway that is now where the car park entrance is, it used to have a gate. Do you ever remember it with a gate? Whether the gate was closed or open?
The only thing that I remember about that sort of memorial archway, and I don't know whether it's still the same way today, is that there was seating on both sides of it as you went through, a wooden bench type thing, but actually built onto a brick structure
within the arch.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so you could sit either side of it as people walked into and out of the park.
Well, that's interesting because that's obviously not there now.
No, right. I didn't know that, but yes, certainly because we'd mess about and we'd lay on the benches and just be a general nuisance to people that were walking past, as you would when you were a young teenager.
Thank you very much, Kevin, for sharing those memories, and we will have a look at some of your photographs that you've got, and if possible we will take copies of those so that we can use them for our archives when we make a visual picture of the park as well as this storytelling that we're having.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. It's been fun to share my memories with you.
Thank you.
I'm talking to Angie Hibbett, and you are...
I would describe myself maybe as an amateur historian, genealogist and archaeologist.
Angie, what can you remember about Wyndham Park?
Well, my memories don't quite go far back enough, but I do know a little story about it, going back to the First World War, or just afterwards. When the First World War finished, there were a lot of tanks that had been made, a lot of in Lincoln and around the country, because of course it was invented in Lincoln, and they'd been used very successfully towards the end of the First World War. The end of the war came, they'd made lots of these tanks, and of course had no use for them because there were not going to be any more wars. Basically what happened, they were given to towns and cities around the country as presentation tanks, as a thank you to war savings that had been accumulated while the war was on. And they were presented to, I think 300 odd towns and cities around the country, and Grantham was one of them. Presentation tank, and they were pretty cumbersome creatures in those early days. It turned up at the railway station, lumbered down to St Peter's Hill. There was a grand ceremony with all the great and good of Grantham there, and I think it was Lieutenant Mears, I think it was, or actually presenting it to the town. It was received by the mayor, and then it trundled off down to Wyndham Park. And it was actually sited in Wyndham Park next to the White Bridge opposite the slate mill. And it was there for several years. Well, I'm feeling it was there for about 10 years. And you're talking early 1920s to early 1930s. And there it sat. And, I mean, it must have been quite an attraction to the boys of the area. They would have climbed over it and in it and enjoyed it. But sadly, the Grantham presentation tank, along with nearly every other one in the country, became a reminder of a time that a lot of people really wanted to forget. It didn't bring the memories that people thought it would. And of course the Second World War came along, and there was the move to get as much metal for guns and armaments, and it was scrapped. It was broken up for scrap and taken away. There's nothing there. You will not see any sight or sound or anything to tell you that tank sat next to that bridge for those years. And it was such an important part of post-war history for the country and for Grantham.
The Mighty Chestnut Tree by Betty Elmer. In Wyndham Park in Grantham in Lincolnshire, there stands a mighty chestnut tree. In the heat of summer, the great canopy provides cool shade for the many birds in the park. In the winter, the dark bare branches reach up to the leaden grey sky. Now, the tree wasn't always there. If we had been alive on Tuesday, the 22nd of June 1897, 2 days after the date of Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee, we would have seen that there was no park and no tree. There was simply farmland and open country. In Griffin's field we might have seen Mr. Griffin, the cowman, herding his cattle. What we would have observed was a boy, aged about 6 years old, dashing across the fields to his little terraced house in Manthorpe Road. As he ran, a conker fell out of his pocket and lay abandoned on the grass. Over the weeks, as the sun shone and the rain fell, the conker put out a little green shoot and a little root, which burrowed its way into the good brown earth and steadily began to grow. The chestnut tree was born. The little lad was dashing back home to join in the celebrations for Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee. She had been queen for 60 years, and the whole country and the empire were celebrating. June the 22nd was a lovely summer day. The sky was blue with just a couple of white fleecy clouds, while a slight breeze alleviated the warmth of the sun. Grantham was magnificently decorated for this very special occasion. In Avenue Road, lines of Japanese lanterns were hung from tree to tree, and in a zigzag fashion across the road. The whole road was bathed in a soft glow of gold and colours. When it was dusk, the thin wires suspending the lanterns were invisible, and the lanterns appeared to be hanging in space. Outside the Guildhall, a royal crown and the initials VR for Victoria Regina were marked out in brilliantly coloured lights. On St. Peter's Hill, lanterns were suspended among the foliage of the trees and also hung from the red, white and blue ribbons across the paths. Fairy lights were decked around the pedestal and railings of the Isaac Newton statue, also around the fencing of the Jubilee Oak and the Duke of York cedar. The houses and shops down the High Street were all festooned with flags, portraits of the Queen, red, white and blue curtains and fairy lights. In the High Street there were 4 huge incandescent lamps which illuminated the street with all the brilliance of daylight. The Mayoress, Mrs. Fred Lee, awarded prizes for the best decorated house or shop. Mr. Whipple of Watergate House won the first prize of £2. The festivities were also marked by 700 aged persons being treated to a feast at noon in the High Street and Westgate halls. They were served beef, mutton, ham, potatoes, bread, beer and aerated waters. It was a heart-warming occasion. At 3 p.m, school children, including our little lad, congregated in the marketplace, having walked in procession waving flags from their various schools. The marketplace was crowded with onlookers besides the children. The volunteer brass band was located on a wagon, and when everyone was ready, hymns and Rule Britannia were sung with great enthusiasm. Finally, the national anthem was sung with fervour and feeling. The Mayor and Mayoress, Mr. and Mrs. Fredley, presided and led the singing. The day's events concluded with a torchlight procession and bonfire. At 9 p.m, flaming torches were distributed in the old Butter Hall, now Westgate Hall, and, headed by the volunteer band, the procession made its way from the marketplace to Hall's Hill, the site of the huge bonfire. This procession was accompanied by vast crowds of people, while thousands had already congregated at the bonfire site. The bonfire was square in shape at the base and tapered to a height of about 35 feet and was surmounted by a small Union Jack flag. The bonfire was solidly built of firewood, coal and thorns with a barrel of tar at the centre. A large notice fixed to the base said, "This bonfire will be lighted at precisely 10 o'clock p.m. Belton, signal rockets from Belmont, followed by bonfire. Beaver, signal rocket, followed by bonfire at Castle. Buckminster, fireworks, followed by beacon fire on the church at 10. So it was that the Mayor, Mr. Fred Lee, at 10 p.m, the Beaver Castle rocket having been seen, climbed a ladder, leaning against the bonfire, and thrust his flaming torch into the top of the structure, which immediately burst into flames and blazed up into the night sky. A magnificent firework display followed. So ended the Diamond Jubilee celebrations. For the young boy who had dropped the conker earlier in the day, his day finished tucked up in his cosy bed in Manthorpe Road, his head full of the exciting events he had witnessed during this wonderful occasion. 17 years passed, and a terrible thing had happened. The year was 1914, and England was at war with Germany. The little boy was now a young man dressed in a khaki uniform. He was a soldier, and he was going to France to fight. Long columns of soldiers marched from their army camp in Belton Park across the fields near the tree, which had now grown taller than a house. They were bound for the railway station and then on to France. The leaves on the tree softly shivered and trembled as they passed by. Thousands of soldiers would never return. They would never see Grantham or the tree ever again. They were destined to be killed in the fighting in France, mostly in the rain-sodden fields and mud-filled trenches. Then, in 1918, the war was over. England and the Allies had won. Our young soldier had returned home safely, but walked with a limp and used a walking stick. He had been wounded during the last few days of the war. The year was 1924. Our soldier was sitting on the grass in the sun. His back was against the trunk of the now almost fully grown chestnut tree. He was engrossed in reading the Grantham Journal of Saturday, July the 5th, 1924, which informed him that the following Thursday, the 10th of July, would be an important and memorable day in the history of Grantham. This was because it would mark the official opening of Wyndham Park, the town's memorial to the gallant men from the borough who fell in the Great War. In January 1920, an initial meeting had been convened by the Mayor, Sir George Earle Welby, CMG, to consider the creation of a war memorial for the town. A special committee, the War Memorial Committee, was appointed by the Town Council to consider the form of the memorial. The Mayor was the committee chairman. It was felt that the creation of a public park would provide employment for the many without work and be a fitting memorial for the 317 officers, non-commissioned officers and men of the Navy, Army, Flying Corps, the Royal Marines and Mercantile Marine who had lost their lives. They served in almost every branch of the Empire's service, but the majority were in the Lincoln and Midlands battalions. Colonel de Paravicini presented some land adjoining the slate mill paddock to the corporation, and the council purchased the paddock known as Griffin's Field in addition to an adjacent field of 6 acres. By July 1922, the funds of the War Memorial Committee were exhausted and public subscriptions were invited. The construction work continued, including the creation of a handsome stone modern bridge to replace the old slate mill bridge, which in August 1922 was severely damaged in local floods. A flour mill had originally stood here on the western bank of the river, but was burnt out by fire on the Thursday night of April the 14th, 1892, Friday the 15th being Good Friday. The new stone bridge had 2 waterways, one 12 feet wide over the Mobeck and the other 25 feet wide over the Wyndham. The bridge itself was 12 feet wide and 90 feet long. Now, the weather on Thursday the 10th of July 1924 was fine. All stages of the opening ceremony went according to plan. The official procession assembled at the Guildhall at 1:45 p.m. and was marshalled by the Chief Constable, Mr. J.R. Casburn. At precisely 2:20 p.m., headed by the Ruston and Hornsby Band, the procession passed down the High Street, then Watergate and Brook Street, and onto the Slate Mill entrance to the park. Among the groups taking part were the British Legion, who invited all ex-servicemen to join them, then RAF Spittlegate, Borough Fire Brigade, King's School Cadets, as well as Girl Guides, Boy Scouts and the Church Lads Brigade. At the park there was a huge gathering of the general public. The Mayor, Councillor F. Weekly, welcomed the procession and opened the proceedings with comments relating to the object of the memorial. Following the Mayor's opening remarks, the Vicar of St. Wolfram's Church, Canon Hancock, and the Reverend E. B. Marn of the Congregational Church conducted a service of dedication, noted for its dignity and simplicity. Brigadier General R. L. Adlericon then gave a short address. The opening ceremony was then performed by the Dowager Lady Leconfield, who had given £1,000 towards the cost of the park in memory of her son, the late Captain Reginald Wyndham. It should be noted that Captain Wyndham bequeathed his collection of big game trophies to the town, having spent many winters in North House and North Parade. Finally, with everyone standing, members of the RAF reversed arms, The flag was lowered and the last post was sounded by 4 trumpeters from Spittlegate Aerodrome. A minute or so elapsed, and then the flag was rehoisted with thrilling effect. Reveille was sounded, and the ceremony concluded with the national anthem. Our young soldier was filled with emotion and pride to be present. Nowadays, the park provides a splendid recreational facility for Grantham. It is green and verdant, with brilliantly coloured, beautifully maintained flower beds and green velvet lawns. It is maintained and owned by South Kesteven District Council, ably supported by the Wyndham Park Forum, a group of enthusiastic, hard-working volunteers. In the park there are tennis courts, bowling greens, children's swings, a paddling pool and a fragrant sensory garden. Originally, the wooden arbours round the paddling pool were covered with Albertine climbing roses. These have since been replaced. Much-loved dogs are taken for walks in the park every day. There is Morgan, Barney, Charlie, Rex, Whizzer, Champ, Alfie, Becky and many others. Barney is a red setter. His owner's whistle is perfectly imitated by one of the blackbirds in the park, which causes Barney considerable confusion. The River Wyndham flows through the park. Flocks of mallard ducks have made it their home, while parties of chubby wood pigeons waddle about on the lawns. All these activities and aspects of park life are benignly watched over by the mighty chestnut tree.
I'm talking to Pam Cox and Ken Gregory, and I think you could tell me a little bit about Wyndham Park. What memories have you got?
Well, I can remember the paddling pool with the trellis all the way round of roses, and we used to play in it until they come to fill it. They used to pump the water in.
Oh, so you used to play in it when it was empty?
Yes, as well as when it was full of water. We used to take all our clothes off and jump in, and we'd be in there nearly all day. If we weren't in the pool, we were sitting on the side splashing everybody.
That's quite true, yeah?
Yeah. And the other thing is, Ken used to take us up on the swings. We used to sit on the swings, and then they'd stand with the feet through the chain and work you till you went right over the top.
Oh, really?
We didn't actually go over the top. You went up to the bar.
You went right up
again.
to the bar to try to get over the top. And I believe if we kept on doing that, we would have gone over. Because we did go high. We was dead straight with the bar, weren't we, once?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I loved that.
Yeah.
And
it was swingers even then.
Yeah. It was great. And the other thing was, when they brought the Evelyn and Barford's steamroller down there, that was a great hit with all the kids.
Oh, wow.
It was.
I used to play on that, you know.
Yes.
I was about 35 then.
I thought it was great.
But it was, of course, there is a connection with the army there, you know, the 1914...
Yeah, they used to camp out in that top field.
Well, they used to camp out in top field, and they also camped out at Belton. But there is a plaque where you go in through the archway as you come off Sandon Road.
Yeah.
There's a plaque here that tells you that the army of the 1914-18 war used to be stationed down there.
Yeah.
It was under canvas.
Yeah, all the tents used to be in them fields, where the playing field is now. All used to be up there.
And of course they used to have toilets there as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
The female and the male. But I think they closed down
And I
now
remember the
because
goldfish pond, can you? We
Yes.
used to go down that little path to look at the fish.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
It was lovely. And the baths, that was very
that was
nice
Wyndham
there.
Park. Never did pay to go in there.
No.
They used to have a fence that run down the back of the Wyndham.
We used
And there was truthfully,
sneak
and
in.
there was tongue and groove type of thing. And the thing with it, you could get out the tour and just pass them and get in there for now.
Get in there for now.
You used to wear your cosy on like nothing else, just your cosy. You used to walk down from 33 with a cosy on. And everybody used to do it. I don't know how they ever made a living. Nobody ever paid to go in, did they?
No,
It was the thing.
It was lovely. We used to catch the fish and then take them to the swimming pool.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
They had bowls there, that you could sit and watch, and also the tennis.
Oh, I
It was
like
a
tennis
real
court
popular
there.
thing to go to Wyndham Park. It was like a day out.
Well, it was for us.
Yeah, used to take picnics and all
Yeah.
sorts, didn't we? And we'd be down there all day till it started to get dark. And that was better than going to Skegness, really. All them different things.
Yeah.
And the times we went in that big glass place where they had a seat all the way round, like a, what would you call that?
Oh, I know the place that you mean. I've no idea.
It was like an undercover to sit in
It
the park,
was.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
In case it rained, you
Yeah.
sat in there.
Yeah,
And
I
all
remember.
the front was out, and all the glass all the way round was coloured glass, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. I
Sun
remember.
shone through it. It was lovely. It was like having prisms in your window, like rainbows. We used to love it, didn't we?
Yeah, I didn't, because it used to look too much like church for me.
A lot of the time we went over that little wooden bridge that went into Red Cross Street there.
Is that still there?
We used to go over the bridge in the water, didn't we, and swim there.
And next to that thing was that big oak tree. Do you remember that in Wyndham Park? It's where the wooden bridge was. It was
Yes.
just down to the...
Yes, I
Well, I
know.
reckon you couldn't climb that, but I did. I got right to the top. I don't know how, but... Oh, I do. Yes, I found a rope, and I threw it over the branch, and then climbed up this rope onto the branch. I broke my leg coming down, I think.
Yes, you did.
But, yeah, it's quite high.
And, we
And it's
used to
still
swing
there.
that- We used to put this rope over the branches, and with it being over the river, you see, you got this old tyre on it, and you'd stand on the bank and you'd swing, and then you could drop into the deep water to make a splash instead of the boards at the baths.
Remember that old
Much
tin bath
more
that we
fun.
used to take down
Yes.
on the Wyndham? Then I'd be on it. Yeah, I thought any minute now we're going to meet Tarzan. Because it's quite wooded there, you know. But you could do that then, you can't now. Although they do the rough races there, don't they?
And what did you do with the tin bath?
God
Parker's
knows.
Field, we used
God
to
knows it.
wait while it snowed, because even in the winter, it was still a thrill to go in the park to see the ducks walk on the ice at the side of the river, but to get on the top of the bath in Parker's Field and go down, it used to jump the path down into the next layer on the ice.
She used to
Sledge in a
the bath.
tin bath.
Yeah.
You could sit 4 kids in, and we all used
If
to
you were
hold on.
lucky, you went in the river if you couldn't
Yeah,
stop.
if you couldn't stop. But
it's
it
all
usually
good
slowed
fun.
down when you got over the path, didn't
Yeah.
it? We had some smashing times down there.
Oh,
And I think if I lived to be 100, I shan't forget them.
The main focus was the swimming pool. We used to get kicked out of the house first thing. We'd all troop down there, probably half a dozen of us, and we'd just spend the day just messing about in there. There's the old grass banks, we used to sit and have a picnic or whatever. Diving board there, they had a slide. I'd say we used to be great for kids our age. I used to meet other guys down there from the other schools. Fishing, we used to take the old nets down, go round the weir on the White Bridge.
The swimming pool especially. There seemed to be some steps, didn't they, side of that grass bank, which led nowhere. You went in, you paid your monies, and there was a grass bank along the right.
Yeah.
This end of the grass bank, there's some steps. They went nowhere. Strange, can you remember? But anyway,
yeah.
I remember sitting there one day and I got stung by a wasp. But it stung me in the eye. That's my luck. Anyway, I had to go to the hospital for 5 days continuous because a wasp stung me in the eye. So that summer was ruined. But anyway, the fishing it was a big part of our life, really. When we was kids, we couldn't afford fishing rods, so we had a net, wasn't it?
Aye.
And that weir got taken out, didn't it? Near Red Cross Street. That's no longer there. We are going back a long time. There was so much going on in Wyndham Park. The bowling green, which is now fenced off, which them days it wasn't fenced off, because you were absolutely terrified to go anywhere near it. You set foot on it, someone came from nowhere, didn't they? Get off that bowling green. And you were gone.
They're like security guards there.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you were younger there, you go down to ATS and for the tyres, go down the river?
We did. And National Tyres, didn't we?
Yeah.
On St Catherine's Road. Go down there and you can guarantee there was a puncture anyway. So you jump in the river and 5 minutes later it was flat.
It's flat.
So
you know when you
had
got the tyres and that when you started at Wyndham Park, right? For the people that don't know, how far did you manage to get?
Manthorpe.
Manthorpe?
Yeah.
What, you mean Willoughby's Mill?
No, Manthorpe Village.
Manthorpe Village?
Yeah. I think that was the longest we went, but it was a long way back, wasn't it?
It was a long way back. Now, when you got to Willoughby's Mill, did you get your tyre out? walk round over where the weir was and then go down through the village?
No, we went over the weir.
You went over the weir?
We didn't worry about that. We went over and splash. But it was safe, really, wasn't it? It was a foot deep at 2 feet at the most, and if you fell out, you just walked anyway. There was no issues. But it was great fun. And there's probably 500 inner tube now in the wash somewhere because we abandoned them and walked back.
You know, when you got to the village there, did you walk back?
Yes, we did. You had to walk back because you couldn't battle against the flow of the water to get back into town.
Yeah.
But usually we'd go down from Wyndham Park to not far down Belton Lane, really. Not much further, was it?
Well, we used to start at Dysart occasionally, didn't we?
Oh, yeah.
You used to go up to Dysart and come all the way through from Dysart, through the paddock and just carry on.
And there was some deep water as well. There was some deep water. But
do you remember in those days we had the students' ragtag and we had the rough race down there, didn't we? Do you remember them? Did you ever compete?
No, we'd stand and watch, really.
Yeah.
On that pressure plate where they fitted down Middlemore Yard, but just where that weir is there was Middlemore Yard, wasn't it? There was buildings, old scout huts, this and ups.
Swing.
Yeah, oh yeah, well I mean we absolutely, because literally if you went up opposite the Conservative Club is where I lived, on Castlegate. So we were literally, we grew up here.
Yeah.
There was nothing we didn't know about this area.
So you didn't have far to go to come down to the park at all, did you really?
No.
Yeah.
Not at all. The field here, there's no cows in there anymore, is it? There used to be.
No, you used to walk through on the track there, and there used to be cows there, didn't there, at the bottom all the way through. I don't know what happened to those.
The putting green is no longer there, is it?
No.
And you're guaranteeing it rained, didn't it? I don't know why. Because you used to go in the swimming pool office, pay your monies, get your little putting thing, and a couple of balls, and away you went. And I don't know why, but we used to get fed up after about 5 minutes and thinking they were the big irons, and you were whacking them as far as you could rather than trying to play the game, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but if you think about it, it wasn't that big, was it?
No. The little pond there, was it, as well, with a drinking fountain?
Yeah, there was the drinking fountain at the side, wasn't there?
Everybody knows about the steamroller.
I was there for
Ruston's.
years, wasn't it? Took away for health and safety reasons.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah,
I mean, zero. I mean, that was quite dangerous,
well, it was
wasn't
high,
it?
wasn't it? You was about 15 foot off the air when you was on the...
If you stood on top of that funnel...
Yeah.
Or the roof, nobody thought about sitting on the top of the roof,
nothing to stop you killing yourself, was it?
No.
Really. And hopefully we might see it again.
Hopefully, yeah.
Well, the old 20-a-side football as well.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody used to pile down there for football.
Yeah.
There was about 10 or 20 aside, wasn't it?
And what about the miniature railway?
Yeah. Can you remember much about that?
Yes. Yeah. I can remember the guy who used to run it as well.
Can you remember what it was called? Little train?
No, I can't remember the name of the train.
Little Flying Scotsman.
It was, yes.
Yeah, because that was famous around here, wasn't it?
So I think a guy called Broadbridge used to operate it, and I mean that was kind of it was an attraction, and it was fascinating to see this little loco pull so many people. I mean, it's quite amazing, really.
For the listeners that can't remember, can you tell them whereabouts it was, the track?
The miniature railway track is where the Scents Garden is now, on the corner of Manthorpe Road and Belton Lane, isn't it?
Near the traffic
I think
lights.
They call it the Sensory Garden.
That's right.
And there's a great big wooden hand or something there now.
Similar to the one at Belton, wasn't it?
Yeah, you actually paid. I mean, you paid very little at the time.
Yeah, no, it was.
And you got on and you sat on this little wooden carriage. Like I say, it's fascinating to think that it was quite a lot of carriage and a lot of people on it, and this tiny loco used to pull them round there, didn't it, with no problem, and then you went back again. And if it was waterlogged in the summer or at any time, which it did get waterlogged, they wouldn't let you go on it.
One thing I can remember about Liverpool, though, the bandstand, where the bandstand was. Yeah. Never actually had to see anybody playing in it, did you?
No, never, ever.
No.
Not what you mean, musicians, bands? Never.
Bands.
Never,
it's called
ever.
The bandstand, and I never, ever saw bands playing in it.
And it's now fenced off, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Probably health and safety again.
But it didn't stop us, did it? It didn't stop us.
No, I mean, we used to crawl around the back and all sorts, didn't we? Because
Yeah.
you used to be able to go all the way around the back on the ledge, and you used to have races around there, so you could get around there the quickest.
And
time.
You fell off?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But it didn't matter, did it?
You had probably 3 inches of ledge to just climb, get all the way. No handholds or anything.
No.
And you used to have races around the back. I've noticed they've actually cemented it now, so it's sloped, so you can't do that.
They spoil your fun, don't they? They spoil your fun. But yeah, it was absolutely a fantastic place to live, really, which we did.
Yeah.
There's nothing we didn't do down there. It was football, it was your push bike, wasn't it?
Tracking, we used to do tracking all day, didn't we?
Yeah.
One end of the park to the other.
See if you can hide. It was kind of a glorified hide and seek, really, wasn't it? But
normally 10 of us.
You'd never find anyone.
Tell me your memories of the swimming pool, because mine are going down there on Sunday afternoon in the green bank, grass bank, just sitting there, and it was a lovely pool too.
Oh, it's great. I learnt swimming there. My old man just threw me in a deep end and just get yourself out. That's how I learned to swim.
The swimming pool at Wyndham Park was cold.
It was, yeah.
No, that was always cold, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't think I ever went there, even in summer when there weren't ice on top.
No,
there wasn't, but it felt like it. There's an old saying, and you see old cartoons, someone dipping the toe in, but believe me, it was cold, wasn't it?
Jump in. Otherwise you'd never get in.
No, grin and bear it, leap in.
Well, for the listeners that can remember, there was 2 swimming pools in Grantham at the time that we used a lot. One at Dysart Road, Dysart Park, and Wyndham Park. But Wyndham Park just seemed to be just that little bit special, didn't it?
Yeah. There was more to do there, because Dysart Park you had the changing rooms one side and a bit of hard stand on the other side. That was it really. Whereas Wyndham Park, you had
it was communal.
Great big grass bank. Yeah. You used to get families down there having picnics. You had the slide. There was a bit of a slide down, wasn't there? The deep end, wasn't there?
Yeah, the slide
eventually.
Board.
Yeah,
the
diving board. And as I say, you used to get whole families down there for the day.
Yeah. Can you remember how much it was to get in? You know, no. I can't. It wasn't a lot, was it? Shilling 2 and 6.
Affordable.
It was affordable, but like I say, we spent as much time in there as you can. In fact, we got to say we were almost shrivelled up. We were in there just all day.
This is really going to test your memory cells. What can you remember about circuses that came to Grantham in Wyndham Park?
The circus. The circus was always here, and I don't think I ever paid to get in.
Oh no,
let's be honest.
Well, you crept under the tent.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
But those days, the circuses, there was lions. And there was elephants.
Yeah, can you remember? Actually, I think it was Chipperfields, and Billy Smarts came, and I remember polar bears. Bears,
yeah.
There was bears there.
Yeah, big old bears. Yeah. But you used to have everything. Elephants, camels. Camels are not that exotic now, but in them days you just didn't see them.
Clowns.
Yeah,
clowns and a high wire as well. I think I saw once, but it wasn't like on the telly. There was not so high, but I didn't fancy doing it. No. It was great, the circus.
Thank you to the following people who've helped in the making of the Wyndham Park feature: Bruce Atter, Dennis Kochenek, John Pinchbeck, Betty Elmer, Helen Anderson, Ian Hempsel, Pam Cox and Ken Gregory, Ella Watts, Angie Hibbett, Kev Marshall, Steve Wright, Ian Parker and Mike Redford, and Elizabeth Boskill from the Wyndham Park Forum. We hope you enjoyed hearing the memories and the history of Wyndham Park.
The Gravity FM Roadshow is available for you to hire for your disco. From weddings to birthdays, school discos to anniversaries, we're able to cater for every music taste. To book the Gravity FM Roadshow at very competitive rates, call us now on Grantham 573 300 or email admin@gravityfm.net. The Gravity FM Roadshow, providing for your music needs.